Hello, good people. Welcome back to part two of my talk with Elle Turner. So, you'll be hearing Elle introduce this episode because this one was going out first on her podcast. But that's why you'll hear two introductions. But I'm really glad that you're back. Part two will be mostly talking about how to overcome the sales ick. We will be going over again a little bit what the sales ick is and how it interferes with our normal sales lives, but we'll be mostly talking about how to overcome it because it's something that we do have to do, and it's not something that can necessarily happen overnight. But this conversation was really enjoyable for me to have, to be in it and to listen back to it, and so I hope that you'll benefit from it as well. Like I say, it's not something that can happen overnight, but the little efforts that we do every day, I think, will really make a difference in building up our confidence, building up our resilience. It's fortifying ourselves appropriately with the right materials rather than letting the wrong ones weigh us down. So I really hope you enjoy this part two and let me know what you think about it. And you'll be able to track down Elle in the show notes as well, because I'll link her Instagram to that as well. So thank you for listening and watching, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the podcast where we talk about all things entrepreneurial leadership and mindset so that you can grow your heart-led, impact-driven business and live the life that resonates with you, that's in harmony with you at a heart and soul level. Well, hey there, it's Elle here from elleturner.me bringing you a very special episode of Taking It Personally today. Joining us is Charlene Thompson from the Sales Ops Effect. Charlene helps small and medium-sized businesses drive predictable growth and sustainable success through actionable strategies to streamline sales processes, and she provides data-driven insights so that you know what to do to make progress in your business, which I love, and it's right up our street on Taking It Personally, because that's something we talk about in Build the Business Owner, determining your results-oriented actions through what your business is telling you instead of listening to too many external sources. So welcome to Taking It Personally, Charlene. I'm so pleased you've been able to join us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm really happy to talk about this topic.
Yeah, me too. Charlene has a podcast called The Sales Ops Effect, and we did an episode together, which you may know about already. We recorded an episode on same topic that we're discussing today, what to do about the sales ick, that fear and feeling of being salesy and sleazy when offering your products or services, because it can really hold you back from achieving business growth. And we don't want that. In part one of our conversation, we spoke about what the sales ick is, how it shows up or how it can show up for you in your business, and what it prevents you from being able to do and achieve, which is really achieving the business growth that you're looking for, that you started your business to achieve. And although Charlene and I are coming from different perspectives on this, both of us have the one goal, and that's to help you grow your business and get what you want from your business for your life. So I'm really looking forward to continuing our conversation, Charlene. And briefly, for anyone who hasn't heard us speak about this already, what would you say the sales ick is? Could you just give us a quick rundown and what it prevents us achieving in business?
A quick rundown, famous last words coming from me. It prevents us from actually selling because we end up feeling emotions that are unnecessary. They're understandable but unnecessary when it comes to sales, based on how we've been sold to and whether we were sold to in a manner that we found uncomfortable. So therefore, we believe that if we were to sell, then we'd be selling in a way that would make other people uncomfortable. So that then stops us from selling, sales ick. And it again, as you were saying as well, it's about having that dread when the call is coming up and everything being wrapped up in it and that fear of rejection. So it all gets wrapped up into that neat little label.
Yeah, to a very sort of potent pressure point where we're feeling just all the feelings of um, am I doing this right? What is this other person thinking of me? Am I going to be rejected? What is that going to mean for my business? What is that going to mean for my bottom line? And the pressure just kind of builds. So today we're going to chat about reframing all that so that we can take action to sell, so that we can make sales provide our service or product and achieve get the revenue that we want as well. And so when we're talking about what do we do about it, the sales ick, I think one of the things we spoke about on your podcast or the first episode of the double podcast that we're doing is that it can make very logical sense to say, oh, well, you know, just, the person needs what you're selling, so view it that way. Or that you are, can't remember what was the example I gave. I can't remember what was the example I gave when we were speaking on the first episode. Hold on a second, it'll come back to me. She
All right.
says last words. Oh yeah, it was about it makes logical sense to say, well, when I see other people selling and I need what they're offering or I like what they're offering, I don't feel that they're being sleazy or salesy. So why should other people feel that about me? It's all very logical that, but unless you can actually feel good and confident and about undertaking the sales activities, I think what you logically know and what we logically know and what we feel can often be very different things. And I think that's something that can be very prevalent in business, that we know that we need to get visible, we know we need to promote, we know we need to sell, but the way that it makes us feel really determines the way that we take action to do it. And so I'm all about is focusing on shoring up your personal skills to be able to take the action. And part of that does include, well, reframing how we're looking at sales being um, uh, an activity where we are either trying to foist something on somebody that they don't want or take something from somebody that they don't have to give. And by that, I mean money, because I think that adds a very particular flavor to the sales activities versus maybe just promotion or visibility activities. You're adding this extra thing about money, and I've yet to meet someone who doesn't have some hang-ups about money. So 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 what would you say in that sort of field? What have you experienced from clients or your own experience around um, this this feeling of, well, am I trying to foist something on somebody that they don't need, or am I taking something from somebody they don't have to give? What's your take
Yeah.
on that?
That is definitely what people have been feeling, even if they haven't been able to voice it. But once we get into it, then that is usually the words that's coming out of people's mouths. And
Mm,
so one of the ways that I help people to reframe it is because I've experienced it as well. I've had buyer's remorse because I just really got sucked into something and realized, oh, this isn't what I wanted, and now the money's gone. So, and obviously they don't want to be like that for other people. And how I try to
mm,
reframe it for them is that sales, some people have some perspectives about sales, so the people who we wouldn't want to emulate, let's say, and their perspective about sales can sometimes be summed up to the perception that the client simply just has your money in their bank account or their rucksack. And so therefore you get to rough them up in order to get your money back. Do you see where I'm coming from? And that's the reason why some of those people behave that like that harsh and that firmly, because just like, yeah, well, they've got the money. So go and get the money. Whereas if you reframe it as to what I understand business to actually be about, which is an exchange.
mm,
It's an exchange. You have, ideally, you have what this prospect needs. You only really know if it's a good match once you speak to them, or if you've got a sales page where people can just buy from, they would understand what's in it, and they would make that decision for themselves entirely, right?
mhm,
But let's say we're on a sales call. If they're saying they want what you have, and you know what you have can help them, then what it really is, how we reframe it is, what are we willing to exchange? Are you,
mhm,
the
mhm,
seller,
mhm,
willing to exchange your time, your product, whether you're doing services or products or something like that? Are you willing to exchange your services, your time for their money?
mhm.
Cool. Are they willing to exchange their money for your services? Yes. Did you both go into it with your eyes open, really clear about what the exchange was, and the person buying really knows what their problems are and knows that they want to get them fixed now and believes
Mm-hmm.
that your service can help them? Then if that's the case, that already, even though I'm the one that's saying it, that already makes me feel easier because
Mm-hmm.
that's simply an exchange. It's just like, you willing to put up this for that? Yeah, I believe I
Mm-hmm.
can help you. I believe I can
Mm-hmm.
help. Fantastic. We're going to swap for swap.
Yeah,
That coming
absolutely.
together rather than I'm going to be the predator. I'm going to take from you.
Yeah, that felt horrible when you were describing it. And
Yeah.
what I was hearing from you in the way that you reframed it was the two pieces that I would say you were talking about there were clarity on the part of the person who is buying, so they know what they're getting, and integrity on the part of the person who is selling because they are explaining what they're offering in a way that allows the buyer to have the clarity that they
Yes.
need to go into it. And
Exactly.
and I think when you're looking at it as though, well, my piece is the integrity piece in order to enable the clarity, then that is you operating according to your own values, your own principles, the way that you want to be perceived as a person, the way you want your business to be perceived as an entity, in order for that person to be able to make an informed decision. And when you and so you're actually not talking there about you're actually not talking there about um the money piece at all. You're talking about the service, and then that's just the exchange, as you
That's
say,
all
for
it is.
the supply of that. Because I think there's so many examples that we could bring up that we would know were sort of bonkers. Like if you went to the supermarket, somebody was hiding the milk and you needed the milk, and somebody was had been too frightened to put out the milk in case they thought they were forcing the milk on you. And you're like,
Can you imagine?
and they're
Some
going,
people
oh,
don't like dairy. Okay.
are you, it's like, are you going to think I'm greedy for charging for the milk? Or, it's just, we would all think that was bonkers, but it's the same sort of principle. If you're hiding what somebody needs, what you can do for
Yeah.
somebody, what your role is to explain it to enable clarity and to sort of explain it with integrity according to your own values and standards. Because when you're doing that, then that's how you feel aligned with the process. Is
Yes.
is my is my is my
And
pers- yes,
if
of
I
course.
may here, you said integrity, which is like my number one value practically. And one of the other words that's very much in my value set is sincerity. So if
Mm,
we think of it as sincerity is, are you the person who you are saying you are? And integrity is, will you do what you say you're going to do?
mm,
If you know you're coming into a call as the person who you actually are, and you know that the things that you're saying are truthful, or you're going to say, or you're going to do the things that you said you're going to do,
mhm.
then it's okay. That it's okay. You're
Yes.
not pretending to be somebody else. That's a con man.
I think for me as well, it's helped to have, well, what are my sort of overarching principles going into this? And one of the things, well, story time, when I started my first business in 2016, one of the things that I wanted to do was make my life better, but not make anyone else's worse in the process. And
Mhm.
that was an overarching principle. And so my first business was an eco-friendly stationery business. And the way that I could demonstrate that value in that business was through the environmental aspects of the business. So I spent a lot of time on paper and toners and that sort of thing to make sure that I was doing as much from the environmental point of view as I could, because in making my life better, I didn't want to make anyone else's worse in the process. In this business, it's about the integrity piece in the marketing.
Mm.
I want to make my life better through growing my business and having all the opportunities and resources that entails, but I don't want to make anyone else's worse in the process. So the way that I demonstrate that through this business is through integrity in my marketing. And another principle that I have is that if for somebody signing up for my I want to go into the process on the basis that I want them to feel as excited the next day about signing up for the program as they are in the moment when they do it. So, my view of the world when it comes to sales is to do it in a way that in the cold light of day, somebody is still glad that they made that purchase.
Yes.
And so that's how I approach sales as an activity. Now, that sounds, I guess, completely altruistic. It's not, because um, that's how I can align what I'm doing with how I want to feel. So it's not a wholly altruistic thing, but it's because it's how I want to feel and how I want to operate my business and how I want to lead my business and the business owner that I want to be. So I found that helpful to kind of sort of noodle out what's the business, what type of business owner do I want to be and how do I want to, what are these kind of overarching principles that I want to operate by?
And isn't that basically as well, your brand? Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you're presenting
yeah,
yourself all the time. If you see people online and they're behaving a certain way, and then once you get on the phone with them, they're like, it does make you think, oh well, I'm not safe anymore. Like I thought this was a cool person, and now I just feel trapped, and I feel like I have to buy because I feel like I've wasted their time.
yeah. And I think as well, it's difficult as well from like the boot being on the other foot, because I think when you're coming into the online space, I certainly found I was working into operating how I wanted to operate. I didn't sort of come in fully formed because I didn't know and I didn't understand and I did. So, in terms of like my messaging and my content, I kind of had to write my way into it rather than it actually being, so I think that's we don't take enough time to know that we have to learn, or we don't give ourselves enough, what's the word, how am I trying to phrase this? I suppose there's a balance between saying, well, I want to be perceived in this way, and
Mm.
giving yourself the time to know how you want to be perceived. Does
Yeah,
that make sense? And I
yeah.
think, and that's not to say, that's not to excuse bad behavior in any way, shape, or form, but it's just to say there's a learning process, and I think this is when it comes back to, it's your own inner compass that is the thing that um, you need to focus on, or allow, not so much, but allow to guide you, because there's going to be so much information about do it this way, do it this way, do it this way, that then it's very hard to then hear what your overarching principles are. If you're thinking, well, I should do it, I should be doing it this way, or I should be following this method, or I should be using this script, or I should be prepared to do X. um
That's really difficult, right? Because when do you, with the way marketing is at the moment, everything is, this is the number one thing you need, otherwise your business is gonna fail. If you don't do this, then you're blah. And that's how a lot of marketing is. It's shouty, it's actively stabbing at your pain points. So it makes it even harder for you to be able to just take the time and sit down and think, what do I feel is right? Because if you're coming from a place where you don't necessarily have business acumen, you're very good at your skill set, but the business
yes,
acumen you don't necessarily have, then you don't
yes,
like, how
yes,
can
yes.
you trust yourself to know what feels right? Is that going in the right direction? And then you see other people doing all of the con man dealings, and they seem to be winning. It's like, yeah, but do you want that money?
Well, that's interesting that you phrase it that way, because I think, and this isn't to sort of refute what you've said, but I think one of the things that I find interesting is that um, marketing operates like it does for a reason, and its job is to get people to buy, and it uses psychology to do it. And so that's its job. And so it's just doing what it's doing. And it goes back to what you said there about the trust in your like listening to yourself, and the trust in your own, building that trust in your own um view of the world, I guess, which is something that we talk about a lot in entrepreneur training, because then you don't need to be so bothered about whether about what marketing's doing, or, you don't need to assume, or not assume, assume's the wrong word, but you don't need to wonder what's scammy, what's a con, because you're not being driven by that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just here furiously writing notes.
All
Uh,
right.
yeah, that's why I'm looking down
Yeah.
because like there's very little room left on this piece of paper and I need to get another one.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I talk about quite a lot because, I don't, in every walk of life, there's going to be um, people whose intentions are not how we would want them to be. And what I want to help business owners do is get to the point where that doesn't really matter because they're not being swayed by that external
Yes.
piece. So they have cultivated that trust, and that, and that, and their own values and their overarching principles, and they have that to make decisions by.
Yeah. And I think trust is a really important thing here because just how we've both been saying today, if you're going to be clear with your customer and you're going to give them the information that they need, then you should be able to trust your customer to make the right decision for themselves, you know?
Mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
think that's one thing that I do advise people is like your ICA, do you trust them? Do you trust them
mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
know what's
mm-hmm,
right for them once they see it and hear it? Because
mm-hmm,
if they're
mm-hmm,
not in a position to know what's right for them once they see it and hear it, maybe they need longer in the buying cycle. They need more warming
mm-hmm,
up before
mm-hmm,
they're willing to trust their own eyes and ears. Because if they're not willing to trust their own eyes and ears, then if you try to force them over the line, you basically have to manipulate them to get them over the line.
mm-hmm,
And I've heard
mm-hmm.
people say, you kind of have to force people to do the right thing for them. And I suppose I understand that if they're ill, but not in a business context. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the
yeah.
way I try to explain it as well with things that are intangible, it's a bit like, like how it's taken a long time for people to get the understanding that mental health is a thing, just like how physical
Mm-hmm,
health is a thing, and
mm-hmm,
they're both
mm-hmm,
important, right?
mm-hmm,
So what I like to do with people is to take the intangible thing and make it physical. So if your approach and obviously people's approach listening to this and watching this isn't this, which is the reason why one of the reasons why they get sales ick. But if somebody's approach is to just find where the pain points are and effectively just keep pressing on them, keep pressing on and pressing on and pressing on them, and then rushing people towards a decision, manipulating them, coercing them towards a decision. If that was a physical activity, and we both see how that it hurts, right? Even just think about it. If that
mm-hmm,
was a physical activity, that's what torture is. You keep
mm-hmm.
making somebody feel pain until they give you what you want them to give you, or tell you what it is that you've asked of them. The physical version of pressing on somebody's pain point is torture. That's why it feels so bad. That's
That's
why.
interesting. I haven't heard it described like that before because, yeah.
Yeah, it's that's why it feels so bad because it's just like actually, if this was just in front of me and I just kept like, it's like, oh, you've got a wound, here's some salt, here's some more salt. It's just like you wouldn't want to do that to someone. So therefore, that's one of the reasons why people feel so bad. It's like, no, you don't have to. You can, however, say to somebody, you know, who is in need, okay, you talk them through. What are you in need of? Like if you
Yeah,
want
because
to a
there's a
personal trainer,
line.
you know?
Yeah, there's a line between acknowledging pain points
Yeah.
so that people know that you get it,
Yes.
and the the part that's maybe more akin to, well, you'll always be in pain if you don't do X,
Yeah.
and which is, I think, this is one of these conversations that I think we could go on about for hours because
Mhm.
there's so many facets and there's so many sort of different avenues in, and a lot of people will broadly experience like the sales they can get and in the way that we're talking about, but there's still a lot of individual components within that based on just how we have the tendency to feel ourselves, and
Mm.
um that sort of thing. So I think one of the things that I would really want to sort of get over is how normal it is to
Yeah.
experience the sales like in these sorts of feelings um in business. And so that, because my personal experience when I started business was when I found things hard, I turned in on myself and thought it was me that was not up to it and
Mm.
wrong and all the rest of it. only to find further down the line that almost everybody I came across felt the
Yeah.
same. And so one of the things that I want to sort of really do now is to say, if you want to grow a business and you know your business idea is a good one, whether you've got any external evidence to show for it or not, you if you want to pursue it, there's nothing, don't get caught up in this, oh, I'm not up to it because of XYZ reason. It's all perfectly understandable, normal, human emotions, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, because we're all humans in business.
Yes. In fact, we still are, even now.
Yeah. That's one thing I say in my program is you're still going to come out the other end of this a human. It's
Yeah.
not a magic wand.
Yeah, you're still gonna want to wash your
That's
hair and eat some dinner. Like all of this fair, and you're still gonna want to just have a laugh with your friends.
absolutely. But well, we're saying we want to help entrepreneurs to grow their business. Most of the people I've come across and spoken with and you know worked with and whatever in the online space, they want to help someone else in some way.
Yeah.
So the selling activity focus on what the product is going to do for that person, how it's going to help them, rather than how it's making you feel to sell it. There's
Mm.
stuff you can do about how it's making you feel to sell it, but in the moment, focus on why you want to help that person achieve what they want to achieve.
And the long tail of that. So what happens if that business gets to do what it does well? How many
Mm,
other people will that help? How many other businesses will that help? It's the whole butterfly effect. And if
totally.
you, as your one piece, not to put pressure, but if you, as your one piece, are too afraid to sell, there's people out there that really, really need you that just can't find you because they weren't clear on how you could help them because you didn't put out that link so that they could just speak to you.
Yeah. And I believe that it's the heart-led, impact-driven people in the online business space who will make the world a better place. That's where I come from, and I do believe that we all have like one piece of the puzzle for the whole. And so the thing that you are doing in your business is your one piece of the puzzle for the whole. Um, so yeah, goes back to what you're saying. That's your piece of the puzzle to
To carry.
apply to the world. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. What is your contribution? If
yeah.
everybody's coming to the cookout, what are you bringing? Don't come empty-handed because we're already here. So no, just with an empty plate,
And
expecting
if
to
you
take.
if
What are you
yeah,
bringing?
if you're bringing the milk, don't hide it.
Exact. Thank you. You come with a really expensive bottle or something, but it's only you that's drinking it. Share.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Charlene. Like I say, I could talk with you for a long time, but thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you on behalf of everyone who listens to this episode. We've spoken about the Sales Ops Effect podcast, but where can people find you online and find out more
yeah,
about how?
I'm on LinkedIn usually. I mean, you can find me at salesopseffect.com. That's effect with two E's. But you can find me on LinkedIn, Charlene Thompson. If you put me into Google, it'll come up with my face. I'm smiling like this. For those of you that can see and are listening, but it's a big smile. If you see red
It was a
lipstick.
very lovely smile for those of you just listening to the audio.
But yes, that's where you can find me, and I do have three free like quick calls where we can chat about how I can help because I work with entrepreneurs and I work with senior leaders in small to medium-sized businesses to help them sort out everything and get their sales systems on track as well. And where can our lovely good people find you, Elle?
Well, my website is elturner.me. We've got free resources on there to help people get started with entrepreneur training. And my flagship program, signature program, however you want to describe it, it's called Build the Business Owner because my philosophy is you need to build the business owner to build the business. So, Build the Business Owner is fundamentally an empowerment training for solopreneurs and micro business owners who want to grow a heart-led, impact-driven business so that they can focus on their personal leadership and mindset development to enable them to meet their business goals.
Fantastic, fantastic. So thank you for everybody who's listening and watching for staying with us. And please let us know what you thought about it. What are your experiences with the sales ick? Do you feel a little bit more lighthearted and more grounded and built as a business owner? Having heard lovely Elle speaking on this, we really want to keep the conversation going. So please let us know in the comments for wherever you're listening to or watching this. And you can get a hold of us through the links in the show notes. So thank you,
Yes.
and we'll see
Thank you
you
very
soon.
much. And I'll speak with you next week on taking it personally. But until then, enjoy your business. Bye for now.
Bye.